Welcome to Downtown Sports. My name is Downtown Stephen Brown, and in today's video, guys, what's next for the Toronto Maple Leafs after signing Wayne Simmonds and TJ Brodie? Well, Mark Masters has this quote from Kyle Dubas here, and on the Leafs' defense, if we could add somebody that maybe possesses a little bit more power and presence on the back end here in the coming days, we'd still like to do that, but we'll see how that goes. So Kyle Dubas sees you, and he hears you, and when we're looking at this defensive core here, yeah, we could use someone who's a little bit of a tough SOB on there, but preferably also a tough SOB that's able to skate and maybe move the puck out of their own zone. And this Kyle Dubas quote from Kristen Shilton here, Dubas on if Brodie will be the Leafs' only big move of free agency. Dubas goes on to say, I think so, certainly in free agency, unless something happens on the trade front that opens things up for free agency, so like clearing out cap space. In free agency, this will be it for us. I don't think Kyle Dubas ever neglected the defense. I think the first summer that he took over was occupied by signing John Tavares. Then it was occupied by getting William Nylander under contract. Then Austin Matthews. Then the Mitch Marner thing. Then the Mike Babcock stuff. It's been a lot, and there hasn't really been a time to focus on the defense, but this is what happens when Kyle Dubas does have time to focus on the defense. The KHL D-Man of the Year being Mikko Leighton, and the QMJHL D-Man of the Year finalist being William Vienna. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. OHL D-Man of the Year, Noel Hoffenmeyer. WJC Best D-Man of the Tourney in Rasmus Sandin. Muzzin and Riley to add TJ Brodie to this list, and there's also Timothy Liljegren to boast. And then another Kyle Dubas quote here from James Myrtle. Dubas says they project Travis Dermott to play on his offside on right defense, and then the tweet under it, that's kind of funny, so let me just give that a like. And then here's some perspective on the TJ Brodie contract here, and that is really frightening. And Chris Tanev also signed a contract with the Calgary Flames for $4.5 million a season for 4 years, so for $500K less. But I would prefer TJ Brodie over Chris Tanev just because Chris Tanev has a long history of not being able to stay healthy. And then some even more perspective from Noah here before we talk about what I wanted to talk about in today's video. Lou Lamoriello had 2 years with Austin Matthews, and that's the defensive core that he left behind for Kyle Dubas. And since then, it's not perfect. It still needs a little bit of seasoning on it. We still need that one more tough SOB on there. But I think that the Leafs' D-core in 2 years under Kyle Dubas has come a long way, especially with the prospects in their system. I think the defensive core for the Toronto Maple Leafs right now is better than what it was last season. It's at least respectable, but it can be better. And Elliot Friedman noting here, and one name that isn't the biggest, what is gaining traction, is Florida's Mackenzie Weegar. Right-handed shot who is arbitration eligible. I think there is interest, and he is exactly the type of player Toronto would look at. Enjoy the day. Now, I'd like to point out that Mackenzie Weegar is a right-handed shooting defenseman, but does play the left side. He played on the other side of Aaron Ekblad for the last couple of seasons. But the guy shoots right-handed. I can't imagine it being too hard of a transition for him. If we're taking a look at Mackenzie Weegar here, he is 6 feet tall, he's 200 pounds, he played a lot of minutes for the Florida Panthers last season, 20 minutes a night for them. He's a guy who throws hits, he blocks shots as well as we're seeing here, and if we're looking at his zone splits, he did play a lot more in the defensive zone than he did the offensive zone last season. And he also spent a decent amount of time on Florida's penalty kill last season. He's a versatile player that doesn't require time on the power play, which is the type of defenseman that the Maple Leafs would need. If we're looking at his last 3 seasons here in terms of expected goals above replacement, he's gotten better every single year. In his last year in Florida, this is exactly what the Maple Leafs need in a defenseman. And another tweet here from Sergey or at Barrison_goal here. Bob McKenzie speculating that Mackenzie Weegar may only be looking for $3 million and Florida's probably looking to move him. Now, that might be a little bit more on a longer-term deal that's probably just on a 2-year deal or so, but we're going to have to see what moves the Maple Leafs would have to make to be able to add another $3 or so million defenseman. Coming back over here and knowing what we know now and looking at Ilya Mikheyev and Travis Dermott and speculating on their contracts and looking at how much money is left over there up at the top and knowing that there's still a hole over here, How can the Maple Leafs afford Mackenzie Weegar?
Hey guys, sorry if this sounds a little bit different. I'm recording the audio to this on my iPhone. After I finished recording the video, I realized that this idea would work with David Savard of the Columbus Blue Jackets as well. The Blue Jackets have let it be known that David Savard is available via trade. He makes $4.25 million for one more year left on his deal, so it would still work with the idea that I have later on in the video as well. But Savard does cost a little bit more, so maybe we would have to get Columbus to retain a little bit left on his contract, maybe 500 grand or 800 grand or so, or maybe even $1 million. I don't know what that would cost you via trade, but it is an option, and it's one maybe that I wouldn't be as excited for. I would be more excited for Mackenzie Weegar, but I would still be pretty hyped if the Maple Leafs got either of these defensemen.
So who am I moving out in order to afford Mackenzie Weegar at about $3 million or so? Well, I'm looking around here, and the names that I'm looking at, one is Alexander Kerfoot, and two, Justin Holl. Because Kerfoot makes about what Mackenzie Weegar would make, and Justin Holl's making about $2 million. Can we find another third-line center for about that price that would replace Kerfoot? Who would you rather have? Would you rather have the right-handed defenseman who will play 20 minutes a night, or Alexander Kerfoot? And it's of no disrespect to Kerfoot. I think that he's an awesome player. I think that he has more to give than what we saw last season with the concussion and the broken jaw and the suspension and Mike Babcock being the coach of the Leafs for the first 20 or so games. Last season was just a headache. He looked really good in the play-in round, but again, who would you rather have? And here's a short list of centermen that are still available in free agency that the Maple Leafs might be able to afford at around $2 million or so. Lucas Wallmark, we've discussed at length before. Joe Thornton would be an interesting option, but at 40 years old, almost 41, that would be a little bit worrisome for me. Johan Larsson is a guy that a lot of people are talking about as someone who could slip under the radar. Carl Soderberg might be a little bit too expensive. I'm not sure if Matthias Janmark is a full-time center or not. I think he's more of a winger than anything. Erik Haula would be... he doesn't really play too much defense. Mikko Koivu would be interesting, but again, it doesn't really provide a lot of overall value, but he does provide a lot of defensive value. And if we're looking at what these guys are projected to sign on 1 or 2 year deals, yeah, we can make that work. That would fall into the parameters of the defenseman making about $3.5 million and the third line center making about $2 million. Now, the Florida Panthers don't want to pay Mackenzie Weegar around $3 million or so, and if they don't want to trade him in division to the Toronto Maple Leafs, I'd just say offer sheet the crap out of him. I mean, if you can give this guy about a $4.3 million deal for 4 or 5 seasons, similar to like a Brett Pesce or a Jacob Slavin type deal, why not? It would only cost you a second-round pick. And like I said, if they're not willing to give him $3 million, they're definitely not going to be willing to match that contract. I mean, he is 26, turning 27, so a 4 or 5 year deal doesn't really scare me for this guy. Now, you can give or take a little bit on the Weegar, Mikheyev, and Dermott contracts a little bit here, but the Maple Leafs would have about $2 million to go out there and replace Alex Kerfoot. Especially if they find someone else to play third center, then you can slot Pierre Engvall in as the fourth line center and give Jason Spezza a little bit of a break. But this would complicate things a little bit for the expansion draft because then the Maple Leafs would be looking at protecting 4 defensemen, and that doesn't allow them to go the 7-3-1 option. It would force them to go 8 skaters instead. But Mackenzie Weegar is 26 years old, turning 27 next year. If the Maple Leafs were to offer him a 1-year deal, that would make him a UFA next season, and that would mean that they wouldn't have to protect him in the expansion draft. Now, this is an article from Sin Bin Vegas here, and it's a little bit wordy, so I'm just going to read it word for word. They're using Joe Thornton here as an example, but just replace Joe Thornton with Mackenzie Weegar. For example, if Toronto elects to leave Mackenzie Weegar exposed in the expansion draft, Seattle will have an opportunity to speak with Weegar from the 17th to the 20th, or whatever dates, to discuss a contract. If an agreement is reached and an official deal is signed, Weegar becomes the one player Seattle has selected from the Leafs. His contract that year will be used toward the 60% cap rule, and no other team ever had an opportunity to negotiate with him. Let's keep using Mackenzie Weegar as an example here since he is under contract with the Leafs until technically the end of the season or before free agency starts, the Leafs may negotiate a future contract with him anytime between now and the expansion draft deadline. Say they come to an agreement but don't make it official, the Leafs can leave Weegar unprotected. Seattle will have the chance to offer him a deal, but he may be already unofficially signed in Toronto, allowing the Leafs to protect a different player without the chance of losing Weegar. It's a risk, but one likely worth taking on a player who can be trusted. Come on, we like when we pull out loopholes here on the channel. But then that would mean they would have to acquire his RFA rights from the Florida Panthers. And if they did that, I mean, they wouldn't have a shortage of assets to trade for him. I mean, Kerfoot, Justin Holl, Andreas Janssen, maybe a prospect or a pick, whatever. Not all of them, obviously, but a package of a combination of them. I like when things just naturally come together and make sense. And if it's a one-year deal through arbitration, you're likely getting him for under $4 million, and that would definitely give you enough money to go out there and get one of the center icemen that we talked about earlier. Now, some people are going to be moaning and groaning, saying that they'd rather keep Justin Holl over a guy like Travis Dermott, and it just doesn't work money-wise. It makes a lot more sense to keep Dermott over Holl just because of the difference in cost. I really, really like this team now. But let me know what you guys think down in the comment section, and make sure to like the video if you did like it, and subscribe for more, because more is always on the way. And guys, make sure you send this video to Kyle Dubas, because this is a good idea. Everything just kind of falls into place.